You ready? Let's go. 2-minute daily devo for Monday, November 14th. I'm in the Contemporary English Version today, and our verse of the day comes from the book of Psalms, chapter 103. A verse of the day is actually verse 19, but I'm going to back up to 17 and give you a couple bonus verses because it's so good. Here we go. The Lord is always kind to those who worship him, and he keeps his promises to their descendants who faithfully obey him. God set up his kingdom in heaven, and he rules the whole creation. This is another psalm by David, and David, as you know, was called a man after God's own heart. And because he was, David understood who God was. He had experienced God. He had walked with God. He'd had the kind of relationship with God that he knew who God was and he knew his character. And so he writes here to us a great promise. The Lord is always kind to those who worship him. You see, as we know, David was a worshiper, and David had experienced the kindness of the Lord and attributed it to that time of worship. You know, when we worship God, that is a time of intimacy between us and God, because it's a time where you're telling God how much you love him, how much you are thankful for him, how much he's done in your life. And so that is how you grow closer to God. And David had experienced, hey, I've worshiped God and the Lord is kind to me. Then he says, and he keeps his promises to their descendants who faithfully obey him. You see, David had also experienced the faithfulness of God and the fact that God had kept his promises to not only him, but to his family and his kids and his kids' kids. God had kept his promises, and David had experienced the faithfulness and the goodness of our God. But here's the key: those who faithfully obey him. You know, I've said this a couple times already, and I'm going to say it again. The grace of God is extended freely, right? Salvation is a free gift that God extends, and we don't have to earn or deserve, and we don't deserve it. But there are blessings attached to obedience. If we will faithfully obey God, God is going to bless our lives. It's as simple as that. And then God has set up his kingdom in heaven, and he rules the whole creation. God is the creator of heaven and earth, and his kingdom is now up in heaven. He obviously rules over all, but that is where his domain is. I want to encourage you today to think about the goodness and the vastness of our God, to think about the fact that God is kind if we will worship him, that God keeps his promises not only to us, but to our descendants. And it all is a result of us when we faithfully obey and do what he's called us to do in his word. All right, that's it, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow.